still in the listening. We're still in the listening phases of what are they looking for from us, and how can we help or walk with them. So if you're interested, please email someone on the board, myself or Agnes. Agnes is kind of spearheading it. This past week, January 26th, was the study session for, or not study session, more of the planning session for the priorities for the city council. And they have a new priority. So they have a new priority, which is huge, I believe, working to help the unhoused. So what I learned sitting through, and maybe you guys know this, sitting through, of course, Jim Davis knows this, they kind of work on establishing 6 priorities. And then what they do with those is they base their decisions, and staff and the city manager are able to prioritize work based on what those priorities are. So it is kind of a big deal. So that was good that we're going to focus on the unhoused. The last days to submit public comments for Moffett Park is February 10th. So if you want to say anything about that, February 10th. And we are hopefully going to look into a hybrid meeting for March. So stay tuned. We will have to pull out all of our technical resources to get this, and hopefully it'll go smooth, but stay tuned for that one. And I am getting some messages on Slack from some of our board that say they cannot get in. Oh, somebody got in. Julia is working on it. So I guess the calendar may be a little bit wonky, but if you go to the I don't know why I'm telling people that are here, but anyway.
Yeah, Julie was here, so I'm surprised she got kicked out.
So I'm going to stop.
Yeah, the calendar was, I had that same problem. The calendar was a little goofy.
Yes, but the description of the meeting, you can do the link in there, then, so that seems to work. So stay tuned. And does anyone here have any public announcements?
Well, we should make the announcement about the 501c3. Oh, there's Julia.
Julia, would you like to share the great news?
Well, the IRS approved us becoming a 501c3. So we're official now. We're stuck.
So, which is huge. I think that is very exciting. And thank you,
congratulations.
Julia. Yeah.
Congratulations. Seriously.
I know,
So
Sue, you wanted that forever.
Yeah, well, you were the person, you know, that's who I was waiting for. Here, Julia, you do it.
Okay.
Because you can, and because you're excellent at that. You had that background, you're an excellent organizer, and all the things that you do for Livable Sunnyvale. I mean, honestly.
Thank you.
So, any other announcements?
You want to announce about the pancake breakfast or whatever it is that's going on this Saturday?
Refresh my memory, or the group's memory, please.
I want to say, I've forgotten the name of the political person.
Evan Lowe.
Evan Lowe.
Evan Lowe, thank you, is doing a pancake breakfast this Saturday at
At the
Help me out here,
Cupertino
The community center.
Community
right,
Center.
right. But Cupertino's Community Center, not Sunnyvale's Community
Right.
Center.
And this would be, I believe this would be characterized as a non-political event. Because he is our elected assembly member.
Right.
Okay, any other announcements? Going once, twice. Okay. So a little aside about our next speaker. I have been in Sunnyvale for probably, coming up on 19 years. And I can say honestly that the first 15 years, I was running around and rushing around. I didn't notice anything. But in the last several years, through some good mentors and some actual slowing down, we have some beautiful artwork in Sunnyvale. And I am very happy and excited to introduce Kristen Dance. And she has been with the city of Sunnyvale for 26 years as the visual arts coordinator. She got her undergraduate degree at Sonoma State, and she has a master's of public administration in arts administration from San Jose State. Let me see where the rest of her bio went. So she says also, she's originally from Capitola. She began her career with, at Sonoma State and San Jose State. She's worked in fine art galleries and museums doing sales, installation, and curating since 1988. When she came to Sunnyvale, she was to oversee the city's gallery, art classes, and public art programs. And since that time, she has spearheaded the master plan for public art, strengthened the art and private development ordinance, and worked on more than 125 private development and municipal public art projects. Unfortunately, she lives in Campbell because she can't afford to buy in Sunnyvale. So maybe there's hope. And so Kristen, welcome. Thank you. And what she's going to do is do a presentation, and we're going to have questions at the end. So if that works. So thank you all. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. See if I can get this to work. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I have two screens, so I'm trying to figure out which version you're seeing, whether you're seeing the split screen or the full screen.
The
It
split
looks
screen.
like the split screen.
Of course it is, because that would just make it too easy. And I actually switched my screens and now I can't remember how I did that, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and just use the, here we go. Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that. I figured it out. Okay, so thanks for having me. In case you haven't realized within the last 30 seconds, my side of the brain is the artsy side, not the techie side. So I struggle with computers from time to time. But I really appreciate you asking me to speak about the public art programs. For those of you, I recognize a lot of people that are on the screen, and I've seen through the years. But for those of you who don't know, Sunnyvale has one of the largest public art programs among mid-sized cities in Northern California. And we've been considered a leader in the public art field since 1990. And, just to be fair to Angela, we have really taken off in the last couple of 5-6 years, where we have been putting a lot of artwork in and working on the master plan, which is pretty big. So I'm happy to say that we have made a lot of progress. So with that, there are basically two programs within Sunnyvale, public art programs. And the first one is art and private development, which is art that's funded by property owners, private property owners. It's placed on private land and it's maintained privately. And then we have the Art in Public Places program, which is art that is funded by public funds, placed on public land or in public facilities, and it's owned and maintained by the city of Sunnyvale. And anything, like I said, anything that is produced from either of these programs is kind of considered the overall Sunnyvale collection. However, only the artworks purchased through the Art in Public Places program or are donated and kept in trust by the city of Sunnyvale and maintained by us, only those have become part of our permanent collection. So we use the word collection kind of interchangeably a little bit, but we don't own every piece of artwork out there. Some of it is privately owned. So I think that's the most important distinction. Back in 1991, the City Council actually adopted Chapter 19.52 of the Municipal Code, which is the Art and Private Development Ordinance. It was meant to encourage and regulate the inclusion of artwork in private construction to help mitigate the loss of open space. And to date, over 100 private development art pieces have been completed. Out of those 196 of them are still on view. We've had a few that have kind of up and disappeared or been stolen or gotten damaged and had to be removed. We also have an additional 8 artworks that have been approved and we're just waiting on installation for those. And another 10 to 12 that are either in another 10 to 12 projects that are either in entitlement or planning phases. So we're just getting started on those projects. So which projects are subject to the art requirement? You're asking yourself right about now. And it is all the non-residential projects that are over 2 acres or are located on a main city thoroughfare or as required by a special development permit, or if city council asks and says, we want to review the artwork before it's, installed. And the requirement is 2% of the construction permit or valuation. It was prior to November 2020 when the master plan was adopted. Oh, come back here. Sorry about that. Prior to it being adopted, it was only 1% of the construction valuation. However, when we went to get the master plan approved back in November of 2020, City Council noted that, most of the developers were already spending more than 1%. So why not just make it 2%? They were all spending close to that anyway. So that was kind of a win-win for us as a program. So the artwork is required to have approval from the Arts Commission. And in some cases, these private development pieces also have to have City Council approval. Again, if they're required by a special development permit or at the request of City Council. Any of the projects that come through from the private sector have the option of using the in lieu fee. And that is where developers can choose to place artwork on site, or in place of placing artwork on site, they can contribute 1.1 of the valuation to the city's public art fund. And we would use those funds at a later date for a municipal project that is overseen by the city or by my crew. You're probably wondering where that 0.1% comes from, but we tack that on because the assumption is that we're going to have to maintain these pieces in the future. So we put that on to the developer and say, if you don't want to put it on site, that's fine, but then you have to help us for future maintenance. So let's look at a few of the most recent projects that have come in through private development funds. Starting with the most prominent one, which is in downtown or at the City Line project. And it's the City Line has 2 phases that they're installing artwork in. The first phase has only 2 artworks in it. The next phase will have 4 artworks in it. But the first of the, or both artworks were required as part of only the retail portion applies to the percentage, none of the housing cost applied to that. So it was 1% of all of the retail downtown. And Hunter Properties describes their art program as curating a dynamic installation of public art that invigorates communal spaces and provides a link between the past, present, and future of downtown Sunnyvale by engaging avant-garde contemporary artists whose work addresses methodologies and ideas of our time. So this is one of the first pieces that was installed. It's called 1000 Suns. It's by Future Forms. And Future Forms is a San Francisco-based husband and wife team, Natalie Gattano and Jason Kelly Johnson. The duo also installed a piece for Intuitive Surgical here in Sunnyvale back in 2020 in front of one of their properties along Kiefer Road. It's a sculptural geometric shade canopy that stands about 15 feet tall, covers a 23 by 31 foot square area. It contains 1,000 brushed stainless steel or aluminum cylinders that vary in size, and they're all welded together. They each house a layer of colored eco-resin polycarbonate, which casts colored circles onto the ground below. And they describe the artists described their work as being meant to reflect the incredible diversity of Sunnyvale's residents and visitors. The artwork creates an open, shaded, and inviting space for people to fluidly move through on a daily basis. It also creates a dramatic backdrop for pedestrians to congregate, sit, view the play of shadow and light from many vantage points. The second artwork is entitled Fountain, and it is by Oakland-based sculptor Woody Deotello. The artwork is located on the northeast corner of Murphy and McKinley Avenues, directly across from the Whole Foods and AMC theaters. And the artwork is a large-scale bronze sculpture. It incorporates the artist's signature style of mutating everyday recognizable objects in order to address the tension between animate and inanimate, energy and exhaustion, and hospitality and hostility. So the artist was inspired by a sink in his apartment, and it had separate faucet spigots, one for cold and one for hot. And he was intrigued by this separation which he understood offered no possibility for meeting in the middle and producing warm water. So the observation was a launching point for him to have a more complex discussion on the importance of water as a resource. And Woody, in working on this piece, stated that the piece connects broader environmental concerns about water to a personal, domestic, or everyday state. The double-headed faucet brings up ideas of water as it relates to abundance or consumption, something integral to our everyday experience. But in contrast, the knotted up faucet speaks to issues of scarcity or conservation. Using this recognizable object, I hope people can relate personally with the scale of the importance of the resource, and that one will stop and question and reflect upon their own relationship to it. So next time you're downtown, stop by and take a look at this piece and think about that. Another recent piece, not downtown, but at 520 Almanor Avenue, right next to the 101, is a piece called Redwoods by Gordon Huther, who was commissioned by Lane Partners for their office building at 520 Almanor Avenue. And the artist is located in Napa. He's a pretty well-known artist nationally and internationally. He has works all over the Bay Area, including San Jose, San Mateo, Brentwood, Stockton, Sacramento, Napa, Dublin, Brisbane, Mountain View. He also has previous works here in Sunnyvale, as there are two works in the city's collection that are smaller pieces, and they're at the senior center. One at the entryway and the other along the interior hallway of the building. But this particular piece spans 8,840 square feet. The artwork is a multi-panel laser cut aluminum screen that wraps around all four sides of the parking garage at the third floor elevation. So each panel is a repetitive pattern of redwood trees, which are native to Puri Park and native to this particular piece of property. The panels were powder coated white, and combined with the cutout tree pattern, this kind of results in a black and white continuous mural that's 10 to 15 feet tall on the side of the building. And a couple more pieces by Gordon. He had a good year this year. He's a pretty big studio, and J. Paul Company also brought him in for 2 of their projects this year. The first is located at 465 North Mary. It's called Spectorium and stands 16 foot tall by 7 feet in diameter. It's an abstract sculpture made of dichroic glass slats that are attached at varying angles and heights to a stainless steel frame. It's kind of reminiscent of, the childhood game Pixie Sticks, when they all kind of sat on each other. And then Lantern, which is kind of in between the entrances of 615 and 625 North Matilda Avenue. It's also an abstract stainless steel piece with dichroic glass panels. It stands 20 feet tall by 7 feet in diameter. It has 4 elegantly sculpted panels that arc inward on themselves. And each panel is and the glass in each sculpture, kind of as the sun moves and as the viewer moves around them, the dichroic glass bends the light, which causes really intense colors, and it causes it to sparkle, whether it's day or night. And this is another recent one that just went in. It doesn't have a title, but it's by Charles Gadkin, who is well-known San Francisco artist. And this was part of a De Anza Properties project. It's located at the corner of Pastoria and El Camino Real, right across from the Department of Public Safety headquarters. And it's actually in the parking garage, in the windows of the parking garage. And it's a series of Corten steel laser cut panels. And each panel measures 8.5 feet tall. So the panels incorporate thousands of cutout monarch butterflies, and they're various shapes and sizes, and it represents the annual migration through the Bay Area and Sunnyvale in particular. And up close, these varying sizes and stages of movement bring a sense of action to the design. The cutout butterfly silhouettes are also part of a larger motif that can be seen from a distance, and are designed to honor Sunnyvale's agricultural history. So from up close, the viewer sees butterflies, but from afar across the street, you see apricot trees and kind of an orchard as you go down the street. Now, the piece right now, when these pictures were taken, it had just been recently installed, so it looks kind of white, but it's actually Corten steel, so it's going to rust with time. And it's already a much darker color if you go by it today. So then our second program, which is the Art in Public Places program, which is the one that I spend the majority of my time working with at this point in time. Again, these are artworks that are purchased with public monies and placed on public properties or in public facilities, and they can be interior or exterior. Unlike art and private development, which has to be exterior and it has to be accessible and visible to the public, because it's meant to be there for the public and the residents of Sunnyvale. And so this part of our ordinance came into play in 2004. The ordinance itself was, the Art and Private Development Ordinance was adopted in 1991, but it only applied to those private projects. It didn't apply to our internal municipal projects. So staff went back and said, hey, we should be doing this ourselves. And so the council adopted at that point in time a 1% expenditure for all of the art and municipal construction projects. And again, all of those pieces that come out of that project become part of our permanent collection. And because everything's funded through taxpayer money, every project has to go through a public process with an art selection committee. And the committee is usually made up of project staff, residents, and business members. And then the projects are reviewed by the Arts Commission, who makes a recommendation to City Council, who has final approval on these on these projects. So these get funded through the public art program, which we just talked about a little bit about the in lieu fees. They go into the public art fund. And so that's one way we fund public places programs. And the other one is through capital improvement projects and that 1% requirement. Okay, so everything acquired through the public art and public places program becomes a part of the city's permanent collection, and they're maintained by the city's Recreation Services Division, also known as Kristen Dance. And currently there are 71 2- and 3-dimensional pieces, works of art in the collection, and they include sculptures, paintings, prints, drawings, ceramic and glass mosaics, fiber works, mixed media works, cast paper, and stained glass. So big difference in styles, big difference in media. And again, as these are all part of the city's collection, we have to go through a formal deaccessioning process and ask city council to allow us to take them out of the collection before we can get rid of them in any way, shape, or form. So. And then in November 2020, we adopted the master plan for public art. This was a 12-year project for me. We started working on it 12 years ago, prior to 2020, but because of lots of staff changeover, COVID, a number of other things that happened, it wasn't until November of 2020 that we actually got the master plan adopted. And it developed, and it's really important because it's kind of the driving policy behind the public art programs, right? It outlines our priorities for public art. It outlines new locations, new ways of engaging the community with public art, ways to publicize the existing pieces that we have through web-based and self-guided tours. It outlines long and short-term goals, including reviews of existing policies. It identifies community expectations for public art, what the residents want to see, and it provides direction in the planning and management of the public art programs through funding, recommendations and strategies, community partnerships or the possible community partnerships, and maintenance and conservation practices, which are really important because if we don't maintain the collection, it'll fall apart. So here are a few of our most recent art and public places projects. The first one was Washington Swim Center by, again, another husband and wife artistic team out of North San Juan by the name of Fiduci. And we had an art selection committee for this project. They identified 3 locations near the front entrance. And then Fiduci proposed to use all 3 of the locations for the budget, which was $135,000 just for the art. The artworks include hand-sculpted color, concrete, and glass mosaic sculptures that playfully tie into the Washington Park's theme of underwater fantasy, including an octopus with 8 different types of shoes, and a crocodile pirate with boots, a peg leg, and an eye patch.
Can I interrupt for just a second?
Sure.
This is Martha.
Hi, Martha.
I don't usually attend because I'm usually up in Oakland with my grandchildren, but I wanted that octopus. Every time my grandchildren, when I take them to Washington Park, they love that octopus. I have about 5 pictures of them all on
the octopus. Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And these are meant to be climbed on. We had a million discussions about well, what's going to break if the kids climb on it. Don't put any landscaping right next to it. It's going to get trampled. We can't put lights right next to it. They're going to get knocked over. All of those kinds of things we were talking about because we knew they were going to be popular with the kids. So I love hearing that. And actually all of our projects include a community engagement workshop requirement. So the artists have to do some type of a workshop to involve the community as they're going through the process. And for this one, because we were doing this over the summer of 2020, we were smack dab in the middle of COVID. We really couldn't hold a community workshop. So we ended up using a kind of a captive audience, which was 133 kids that were attending Sunnyvale Recreation Division's summer camps at the time. And so I went in and worked with the kids to create plaster Paris handprints. And so if you look at the rock that the octopus sits on, there are handprints embedded in that. Those are the 133 kids that I worked with to make their handprints. And then the artists transposed those into the concrete during the process, as well as put their initials on them. So the idea is that the kids are going to be able to come back at a later date and they're going to be able to find their handprint. Their hand might not fit into it, but they're going to be able to find their handprint because it has their initials. And I did a handprint and I didn't know where it was going to end up on the rock, but I found it and it was super fun to find. Unfortunately, my hand will still fit in the handprint for years to come. Actually, I don't know, unless my hands shrink, but so for all of our projects, we have that element, which is super fun. And then we also just recently completed back in April, the Fair Oaks Park renovation, and James Moore applied for the project. And this project was $140,000 commission for the artwork. And he designed 5 brushed aluminum sculptures. And each of the sculpture was designed with the theme of movement and play. And it incorporated geometric shapes arranged to represent human figures enjoying activities prominent in the park. Things like basketball, soccer, baseball. And this is his signature work. So when you see this type of work, you know it's James Moore's work. But the tallest figure is about 10 feet tall. And that's the one holding the yellow ball. And the smallest one is the wheelchair figure, which is 6.5 feet tall. And he purposely painted the faces of the figures in the sports balls in primary colors to offset them from the metal bodies. And there are 3 of these figures right next to the new sign at the park. And then there are 2 that are over next to the dog park. So go look at them, enjoy them. Don't look too closely though, because I haven't got the plaques in place yet. So don't tell anybody. I'm getting there. And then our most recent project, which you've all probably seen popping up all throughout the downtown, was the Great Box Cover-Up. And this was a utility box project that included 12 city-owned signal boxes in the downtown area. Now, I constantly get questions from people going, well, when is the box at the corner of Fair Oaks and El Camino going to get painted? And the answer is it's not by us, because we don't own it. The city doesn't own it. So we purposely have permission to utilize the boxes throughout the city that are signal boxes owned by the city, but not ones that are owned by the county, nothing that's owned by AT&T or PG&E or a private company. So you will see as you drive around the city that not every box is going to get painted, but we did invite local artists to apply for this project, and we gave them $1,000 stipend we asked them to paint on site. And it was really fun to go watch the boxes get painted and watch the people going by and waving and honking and encouraging the artists. The artist that was down in the picture in the far right-hand corner, that's right across the street from where they were digging out the bottom of the new City Line building. And so that was a line of trucks all day long that was going by and going down underneath, picking up dirt and going out the other side, dropping it off and coming back around. And what ended up happening was it was the same set of drivers, I don't know how many there were, I'd say there were a dozen drivers, but they started stopping like way down the block because they started realizing that they were just blowing exhaust in the artist's face all day. And they all kind of like, they were super supportive. And I just thought that was the funnest thing to watch. But this project is considered temporary. So it's not part of the city's permanent collection. Although the city is committed to provide maintenance to try and keep these looking as good as possible so we can have them in place as long as possible. And we just finished the selection for phase 2, which are some of the remaining boxes throughout the city. We're in contract phase for that, and then we would go through the public approval process with the Arts Commission and the City Council. And we expect to start painting in May or early June of this year. And there will be 16 boxes for that one. And then there will be a phase 3, but those are all utility boxes. We set aside 11 or 12 utility boxes, and those will be offered up to the 4 high schools that service Sunnyvale residents. So now I know you're all so excited. You're going, how can I get more involved? So go to the city's webpage at sunnyvale.ca.gov, or just type in City of Sunnyvale and then search in the search bar, put public art, and it'll take you to our public art page. And you could subscribe to a public art interest list on that page. That'll give you all the information about upcoming stuff. It'll have all the calls for artists that we put out, all the opportunities for the artists. You can view and read the master plan for public art in its entirety. You can download self-guided walking tours that we've already developed that are 2 miles or 2.5 miles and under. And you can volunteer to be part of a public art jury. We're developing a pool of people who are interested in doing that so that as projects come up, we can call on people to come and sit on our jury. However, don't look for that tonight. Check back in a couple days for that, only because I noticed this morning it's not actually on the web page. It got dropped off. But the next slide will have my email address. Anybody can contact me directly at any time, and I'm more than happy to give you the link for any of this stuff. And then we work with a company, a website that's called the publicartarchive.org. And we have downloaded our entire database of all the artworks in the city. So you can see the entire collection there, and you can create your own self-guided tours anywhere within the city. You can also take this on your phone and while you're traveling. And you can go anywhere in the US, and you can go to San Francisco and look up their collection and create your own self-guided tour of some of their public artwork. So when you're traveling around, you can always find public art. And I think that's really cool. But and also don't forget, you're welcome to sit in on any of the Sunnyvale Arts Commission meetings. They meet the 3rd Wednesday of each month, and hear a little bit more about what they're looking at and what the decisions that they're making towards the public art program. And so with that, I'm happy to take any questions. I will say, because I know this is going to come up, but yes, we have more projects coming up. Some of the projects that I'm currently working on are the Civic Center. The new Civic Center will have 3 different projects for public art. One will be the amphitheater. The other will be, there will be 4 large scale interior artworks at the lobby landings on each floor. So that'll be in the new City Hall. And then we're going to have a rotating sculpture program that's going to go in at the corner of All America Way and Matilda Avenue. That we're actually building a concrete pad, and we will have sculptures on loan for a year at a time, and they'll switch out. Lakewood Library is coming up in the next couple of years, and it will have a public art requirement. Plaza del Sol also will have a public art requirement coming up with their next phase of construction. We are getting ready to do an icon sculpture project. That'll be going to council in April, and Arts Commission, or actually is it Arts Commission in April? City Council is shortly after that, but we're choosing an icon that's going to be representative of the city. And then think in terms of the Chicago Cows, or the San Francisco Hearts, or the San Jose Sharks, you know, where they're fiberglass sculptures, and they're kind of oversized. And then we're going to have artists come in and paint them, and then we will put them throughout the city of Sunnyvale, mainly in parks at this point, we think. And they'll be on exhibit for up to 48 or up to 24 months, up to 2 years. And then we also have the community center grounds renovation, which is coming up. And then we are working on getting some railings in so that we can have some interior gallery exhibits in the library and here at the senior center. And those will be rotating also for local artists. And okay. Questions? Is it Leah?
Yep. Hi. First of
Hi.
all, thank you for this really wonderful presentation. It was terrific, very, very enlightening. 2 questions.
Mhm.
For the iconic shape for the city of Sunnyvale that you're proposing, like the cows and the sharks and stuff, have they decided on the shape yet?
No.
Or I don't,
No.
okay.
So we did a public survey, and we asked people, what would you like to see as your icon? And it came back with the top 5 as being a piece of fruit.
Thinking an apricot, yeah.
Yeah, it was apricot and cherries were the 2
Yeah.
most used fruits, or most suggested fruits. We also had parrots, a water tower, fruit box. Oh, and then a computer chip. So those are the 5 that we are, or no, it wasn't a computer chip. It was something else.
Like a processor or something, or?
No, that was on the list, but it didn't make the top 5.
Oh.
A sun.
A sun.
Yeah.
Of course.
So we have had some designed. We are in the process of writing the report to council for that. It will also be going to the Arts Commission in April, and then on to City Council, and City Council will make the final choice of the icon. And then from there, we'll have them fabricated, and then we'll put our RFQ out to the artists and get people involved.
Okay. And my second question is, and final question is, are there any of those city-owned utility boxes in the northern part of Sunnyvale? And by that, I mean anything north of the 101 freeway, because I haven't seen much public art in my section of Sunnyvale where I live, which is, between the 101 and Moffett Park, basically. So I'm just wondering if there are any of those city-owned boxes that are up this way that we could hopefully expect for a future phase to be, painted.
Yes, there are. I'm trying to see if I have my list handy, which I don't think I do. But I know there are some all the way out as far as Caribbean.
Okay.
Drive. And I can say that we're really working hard to equitably put public art throughout the city. One of the things that came up in our outreach for the master plan was that there is a ton of artwork. There's over 100 pieces of private development artwork, but they're all in North Sunnyvale. They're all where residents don't normally go unless you work out there or you live in North Sunnyvale. Otherwise, people don't know what's out there. So we're trying really hard to kind of figure out areas, and that is the residential areas up in North Sunnyvale are one of the ones that were identified as clearly lacking.
Yeah.
So
Be nice
we got you.
the sound wall that goes along Tasman or something. That looks like a huge canvas to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
But
yes.
just a suggestion. But thank you again. Appreciate it.
Julia?
Hi, thank you. This is great. I can't wait to do the self-guided tour. I was wondering, because you had at the beginning talked about your other roles in the Sunnyvale Arts program. Could you come back another time and talk about all these other programs too?
I could, or I could send one of my coworkers for sure. I actually, since the master plan was adopted, I had to give up a few things because the workload in public art more than doubled. And it's just me. I am the public art team. And so I'm no longer doing any class programming, but we are still doing a ton of class programming. We have a creative arts center and a theater here at the community center that are fantastic facilities, and they have a ton to offer. So I'd be happy to make arrangements to have someone come out and talk about some of the class programming. We also have a lot of special events. I'm still very involved in the special events, but and unfortunately the gallery closed down back in 2005. And that was what I was originally hired to work here for, was to oversee the gallery program and curate the shows. So that was a sad day for me, but we are working on finding ways that we can get that reopened, because we do still have the space.
Great, thank you. Mike, can you stop her sharing so we can see people?
Maybe I
can.
think she needs to stop it.
Yeah, I just got to figure out where I'm stopping it. I was thinking
Okay.
somebody might actually want to see one of the slides again. So there you go. Hi. Good to see you all. Mike, you had a question.
Well, and you already went right into it. I was going to ask, Sunnyvale does not have a gallery. And I remember when that gallery used to be open. And,
Yeah.
you know, Santa Clara, for example, has the Triton, and they've got one at the Santa Clara University, and many other cities around us are able to have a gallery, but we do not have any such thing. Sometimes the Sunnyvale Art Club exhibits elsewhere, other cities, because we have
They do.
no place to exhibit art. So when I went online before this, you know, and looked at the website, I was surprised at what a large permanent collection there is, which I guess is sitting in a warehouse somewhere, because we certainly wouldn't want any of the public to see any of this.
Well, it's actually, there's very little that is in our art storage right now. Several of those pieces are in the City Hall, in the council chambers. We have some over at the library. Yeah. So
Well,
most of it's out. We try to keep it all on display as long as there's a place for it to go. But yeah, you know, the gallery is a tricky thing, because it was run by volunteers in
Right.
essence, but it still had a very large budget associated with it for all the unseen costs like insurance and alarm systems for the building and upkeep of the building. And so we were actually ready to go to City Council with the master plan for public art, and the recommendation was to reopen the gallery. And unfortunately, we were scheduled to be at City Council that night on March 17th of 2020. And we went on shutdown on March 16th. And once that happened, everything changed. We knew there was no way. It wasn't the right time to ask for a give like that, because we were, you know, struggling to keep everybody employed and help all of the people, all of the shut-ins and the people who needed the help during COVID. So
Yeah,
so
well, it
it's
would
kind
be
of been a
great,
long battle. We're trying.
yeah, well, great. It would be great to have that open again. And, you know, we're redoing the community center, but I haven't heard any discussion of making that art gallery larger, because I guess because it's closed anyway. What?
Well, the upcoming community center project is just the grounds. It's not any of the buildings.
Yeah.
A little bit of ADA stuff, but mostly it's just grounds. So that would be possibly a future project. I keep mentioning it and dropping little tidbits where I can.
Well, I hope so. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Colleen.
Hi. Hey, looking forward to the village centers. Plus, I was trying to listen for any public art in South San Jose. Finally, North San Jose. Finally, North Sunnyvale is ahead of South Sunnyvale on art. I assume more than one village center, especially Village Center 1 near us here at Fremont and Mary. It's more than 2 acres. So are retail sites usually going to be required for these art installations?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. If it's because with retail, they really have to change the footprint in terms of construction for the village site. So that could be coming down the way. I personally, it hasn't come across my desk yet, but that doesn't mean anything. Most of the time, the projects come across my desk at a time after they've been permitted. And, you know, so fingers crossed. But
Okay,
the
great.
Icon project will be in several parks in South Sunnyvale, or at least that's our game plan. But we still have a lot of ways to go. We're still in the planning process.
I've heard icon now a few times. What do you mean by it?
Oh, so
it's a
we're calling
company?
it the Icon sculpture because we're saying what represents, if we had to have an icon, what would represent Sunnyvale? And so those were those 5 things that came up as the top 5 were the fruit and the fruit basket
Yeah. Okay,
or fruit box, like an old time fruit box. Yeah,
thank you.
sure. I think I'm way over my time limit, but
No, I think you're good. This was wonderful. Thank you very much.
you're welcome. And I should tell you all, go on the city website, look into the activity guide, because I am running public art tours once a month, starting in April through October. And each tour will be a little bit different in their walking tour. So it's just a group of us that walk around, and I give little tidbits about the history of some of the public art as we go along the way and other exciting things. So if you're not sick of hearing me talk, join. It's free. But we do ask that you register so that if we have to cancel for some reason, we can get a hold of you ahead of time.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Well,
All right. Well,
Best
thank
of
you for the
luck.
work you all do. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
yeah. And you're welcome to stay and listen or whatever you want to do. Our next topic is the downtown specific plan. And Angus is going to introduce our speaker, Martin Pine.
Hey guys, Angus here. So Martin is the chair of the Livable of the Sunnyvale Planning Commission, and he's also on the board of the local Dems Club. And he is a graduate of Harvey Mudd College and is a software engineer here. Martin, please take it away from here.
Yeah, could I have screen share permissions, please?
There he goes.
Thank you. Okay, so what I was asked to talk about tonight was the block 20 stuff. That's an amendment to the downtown specific plan, which it was originally approved by the Planning Commission on January 10th, on December 12th, and approved by the City Council on January 10th. However, the proper noticing process was not observed, and therefore it was rescinded by the City Council January 24th, and it will be coming back to the Planning Commission on February 6th, and then it will be going to City Council on February 14th. Block 20 of the downtown specific plan is what you see on your screen. It is 510, 528 South Matilda, 562, 568 South Matilda, as well as 598 and 584 South Matilda. So in less numeric terms, it's bounded by it's on Matilda, it's bounded by Olive and El Camino. There was a general plan initiation. It was approved by the City Council on May 8th, 2018. And that was under some older land use laws. So the requirements were a little different what City Council asked for in 2018 was a little different than what could actually happen at this point, but was to increase residential density from under 103, increase the commercial density from 16,400 square feet, 36,500 square feet, and also to keep the height limit the same. And as we'll see, that's a little contradictory under current state law, but so as part of the specific plan amendment, general plan amendment process, there's the applicants were asked to submit conceptual projects. These projects are not before either the planning commission or the city council. These are kind of more ideas of what the applicants who own the sites that are being, the sites on block 20 that are being studied would want to do. But they're not binding necessarily on anybody, but it's just kind of a sense of what they would like to do with their property. So the 510-528 South Matilda project would redevelop two parcels with a 4 to 5 story mixed use building that would include 10,000 to 30 square feet of ground floor office and 30 to 46 residential units. The conceptual project for 562-568 South Matilda would redevelop two parcels with a 3 to 4 story mixed use building, and that includes 40 square feet of ground floor office space and 25 units. There were 103 units studied. The staff recommendation on this project that was the recommendation that was previously approved by Planning Commission and City Council, and then was subsequently, it was rescinded by City Council, technically has not yet been rescinded by Planning Commission, but that is one of the alternatives on the Planning Commission RT on the report to Commission. But anyway, so procedural technicalities aside, the staff recommendation was for a base of 70 units, and that's before state density bonuses come into effect. There's the green building incentive bonus, which is 5%. That's the Sunnyvale bonus, and there's the various state density bonuses, which could add higher number, which could basically pull the densities up to roughly where the applicant project is. Well, the applicant's plural projects would sum to about 86 units. If you added all of the state density bonuses together, the one site with 30 that would be allocated, the 510-528 site, which would be allocated 32 residential units, that would go up to 41 units. The applicant is looking at 30 to 46. The 562-566 South Matilda site, that would be allocated 19 units with density bonuses that adds to 26 units, and the applicant proposal is 25 units. So so that's kind of the overview of, so that's kind of the high level overview. There's also, so the stuff that's been kind of a subject of controversy is building heights. The initial city council direction on this plan was to maintain the existing height limits. The existing height limits actually vary by site, but like the 510-528 South Matilda has a height limit of 40 feet. The property at, and I'll put that map back, but the 562-568 South Matilda one has a current height limit of 30 feet. Now, but it would go up to 40. Now that would actually go up to 40 feet in the planned project. It would add a 40-foot. It would.
Did we lose Martin?
I hope not. It would use a blanket.
Go ahead, Martin.
Yes, it would use a blanket 40-foot height limit. But one subject of controversy has been that via the state density bonus law, the height limits are not strictly enforceable. So you could use a density, so if you were using density bonus to increase your application, your number of units that you could, and that was not physically possible to fit in under the height limit, you could use that to expand the height limit. Some of the concerns that we've heard, that at least I've heard from neighbors, is that there's the apartment complex that's directly to the east of block 20 that you can is on all of that. Well, it's not on all, well, it's between Matilda and TAFE, and the single family homes on TAFE is actually zoned for a 50-foot height limit. And while we can discuss how likely it is that those sites would actually redevelop, there'd be the residents of the single family homes that you can see on this map to the right, which is the east of those apartments, have stated concerns about the impacts of those increased heights on their property. And as mentioned, there's no way for the city to actually so that is a thing that has been a point of contention, at least as far as I've heard. There are also a number of specific design guidelines which include objective standards that are being proposed for block 20. I don't know if you want me to get into the actual nitty-gritty details of those, because I will be reading somewhat tech. If you want me to, I can start reading them, but it gets kind of deep into the weeds. But it's what you'd kind of expect about building mass, building articulation, step backs above the fourth story, setbacks from the rear property line if it exceed for projects that exceed the height limit against state density bonus laws would play into that. Privacy enhancements, usable open space requirements for private balconies with a minimum dimension of 5 feet, minimum area 50 square feet, open central courtyards or podium level, that the minimum area of 1,000 square feet, open space, it's open to the sky. So that is what happened on. So like I said, this was approved by originally, so the public hearing that the Planning Commission had on this back on December 12th was sparsely attended. You had the developers there, you had the commissioners and staff there, and you didn't really have anybody else there. This came before so the Planning Commission recommended approval of the staff report. The City Council on January 10th heard this item, at which point it was discovered that the city had not properly noticed here. There was a nice noticing map in the staff report, but apparently it hadn't been used for anything. So there were a bunch of residents from the adjoining neighborhoods that had concerns about the project, and I'm not going to speak for them because they can speak for them, because I'm not here to speak for anybody. This is informational. But so City Council discussed it and voted 5-1 to 0-1 with Mayor Klein recused and Council Member Srinivasan voting no to approve the project, but again, then it was subsequently rescinded because staff determined that felt that the noticing failure wasn't just a city policy issue, it was actually could be a government code issue. So we are back to rehearing this. Yes.
Martin, would it be accurate to say, 'cause I haven't heard any details about this, but the part of the noticing confusion was that this was amendments to the downtown plan. The projects there were no actual, as you already said, there were no actual projects proposed. Had these been projects that were proposed, there is a clear noticing protocol, but because it was just amendments to the downtown plan, possibly it ended up in another, kind of another protocol for noticing.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Which is honestly kind of peculiar because arguably this step is more important for noticing than the project stage, because when we actually if this is approved and then the projects are submitted, the city will have very limited discretion on being able to reject the projects because of state housing laws. So if you are a concerned neighbor that wants something about this to change, the time you need to be in, or if you are somebody that cares about the details of this, the time to get involved is really now, because this is the legislative stage. The city has complete discretion to go through with it. They don't have absolute discretion because the city couldn't just remove the residential land use designation entirely, because that would be a net down zone. But the city has very broad discretion to change the zoning on these parcels. Whereas when the city does change this, when the city does change the zoning on these parcels and the projects come through and if you do not want that to happen, then you come to the planning commission or the city council saying, hey, I do not want this to happen. I mean, you're likely to get a response saying, unfortunately, state law doesn't really give us much choice. So this is really the time that, frankly, the noticing is more important for.
Well, that's an interesting point. Of course, as activists, we know that's true, that, you want to get involved early, or whether it's the Park specific plan, the El Camino Real specific plan. But for example, they're working on the village centers and the master plan for the village centers. Have they been noticing everybody within, let's say, 1,000 feet of a proposed village center as they change this plan?
I do not know that off the top of my head.
I don't know it either, but it's
I mean, I would hope they would at least notice when those plans come forth for hearings, but I don't know when that will happen off the top of my head either. If you give me one second, I'm just looking something up. The item to rescind went to city council. That the staff report basically said that they thought it was inconsistent with council policy, with municipal code, or blah 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 blah. They thought it was basically a violation of the municipal code and council policy 2222, and they were basically like, yeah, we would like to dot our I's and cross our T's on this, legally speaking. Angela.
So mine's kind of a personal question. My dentist is in 584. Are there plans already in the works to read or stuff to do something there, or is it just available to do something there?
Uh,
Because you went through the first two
yeah,
sites and such.
584 is not to be zoned for residential uses. It's planned to remain as office land use.
Got it. Are the rest of them residential then, or?
584 and 598, 598 being the bank, are both proposed to retain the office designation.
And then my last question, sorry. So if the apartments behind these are already, what, 3 stories, right?
Yeah,
How much, and if these happen to go, block 20 happens to go 4 or 5, how much would the single family homes really be impacted? I can't visualize that. What does that mean?
I think that is best as a question for the single family home residents.
Okay.
Sorry, that's just I feel like that is more of a personal, I feel like that's more of a personal question for them.
Okay, so there's not like data that says when you build so much higher, besides an apartment building that's already 3 stories, that the single family home gets more wind or less
I mean,
sun?
we do have solar shading requirements that the projects would have to meet. It's what, not more than, I want to say, it's either 5 or 10% on like annualized, and it's as part of the project submittal, they'd have to submit a solar study that demonstrated that they weren't violating that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Sorry, I'm being I'm trying to be pretty careful about what I say, since I am, chairing a public hearing on this item next week, so I'm not going to get into what I personally think should happen, because
Totally understand and absolutely agree. So whatever, maybe we should have made that a little clearer at the beginning,
yeah,
that Martin has to be pretty conservative in what he says and is not able to
I
say.
will note that when I agreed to speak on this originally, it was before everything got rescinded, so I was going to get into a little more of my personal opinions, but
Yeah. I think
yeah.
Totally
Chuck has his
understand,
hand
and
up.
thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chuck has his hand up. It may be hard to see because his hand is the same color as the bookcase and his.
I'm going off the participant list. I can see it clearly there.
Okay,
Chuck.
okay. Chuck is muted.
It would work a lot better if I unmute. Sorry about that. I'll figure that out eventually, like one of these days I'll catch up. Right now they're zoned for 5 stories. Is that what you said?
They are zoned for, well, it varies per site, but right now the 510, 528 property has a height limit of 40 feet, and the 562, 568 height site is at 30 feet, and this would increase that to 40 feet.
Okay, and is 40 feet, is that 4 stories, or is that, like, how many stories can you get in? Or is that not, it's just they cap it at, this is what the height is, and they don't worry about how many stories?
It's defined in terms of feet. Obviously, we care about how many stories it is, but like, because like, we see like the conceptual project at 510, 528 would be 60 feet /5 stories. The conceptual project at 568 would be 46 feet, which be 3+, which is here would be calculated as 3+ stories, but legislatively it's defined in terms of feet,
Okay.
it's not defined in terms of stories. And obviously there are minimum blade heights and minimum.
Yeah.
You can
Now-
have like a building for like ants or something. It would violate the fire code, I imagine.
I was trying to figure out, like, could you get 5 stories in 40 feet or?
I'm going to casually say I doubt it. I am not an architect, but
Okay.
40 feet divided by 5 stories would be 8 feet, given that you need some amount of, given that the ceiling and the floor and anything between them need to have non-zero thickness, that those are very low. Those would be very low ceiling.
Short stories. Okay. And so, so the main thing they're doing here is just increasing the residential units and the commercial square feet then? That's the big thing they're changing?
Yes.
Okay.
With the caveat that the state density bonus law allows you to punch over the height limit, and that would, I would say, probably happen.
Okay.
Colleen.
Ah. Oh my God.
Oops,
Well-
you're doing the same thing I did where you're muted.
Mute. Oh my gosh. Okay, here we go. All right. Okay, I just need there's a lot going on here. So the picture in front of me now has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 7 plots. Well, probably more than that, but maybe 6 things, and 3 of them are outlined in red. And they're thinking of, but this whole thing is block 20.
Yes.
It's just, this is a comment more than a question. It's just kind of strange that each plot of land has such different designations as far as height differences. This is just because when these people built a long time ago, they got their way, or it just doesn't make sense, because usually you have a zoning block and everybody's all together. So maybe if you could clarify that, I would be grateful to you. Thank you.
So the existing the blocks that are everything from 562 south to Olive is currently zoned as high density residential, while everything from 568 north to other way around. 562 north to 510 is zoned high density residential, or 568 south to 598 is zoned as office. So that is the existing zoning on those parcels. There's
And what was the thing that started this change to block 20?
this was a general plan initiation, well, a general plan amendment / specific plan amendment. I will back this up a little. So if you want a rezone on your property for whatever reason, usually because you want to develop it in some way that is not currently contemplated by the zoning, you can file a request for a general plan amendment or a specific plan amendment in this case, because it's within a specific plan, to modify the zoning on your / adjacent properties to do the thing you want to do. And these get reviewed quarterly by the planning commission and subsequently the city council. And the owners of the highlighted lots, the 510, 528 and the 562, 568 lots, submitted a general plan in it. Well, I don't know when they actually submitted it, but the city council agreed to proceed with the general plan initiation request on May 8th, 2018, because they wanted to add additional residential and commercial uses on their properties, and the city council had direction to include the entire block in the study, change the primary land use designations to mixed use, add increased
Okay.
units increase units and densities, not increase the height limit, update the development standards, etc., so forth. So that was council direction back in 2018, and this is everything coming back, basically. Like, this is the result of
Okay.
the study.
So in the meantime, arena numbers went sky high and everybody's going, oh, can I build more housing maybe? And then, I'm sorry, I don't have this. Well, I mean, I could look this up, but they just approved the El Camino specific plan. This property is on, this part is on the El Camino specific plans, but it's really part of Block 20, not the El Camino specific plan.
Yeah, this is part of the downtown specific plan.
Okay, thank you.
So, Gail.
Yeah, so they're using the inclusionary here of 15% affordable,
I mean,
or
you
are they gonna,
have to use, I mean, you have to if you're building residential. That's
yeah, so that's what they're gonna do. They're not gonna do more than 15%.
that is a question for the developer.
Okay, and that you'll cover that on Monday?
Well, okay, so
There's no project yet, sorry.
yes, right. The thing is, they don't have to. They're not at the project stage yet. So like, and this is something I actually said to them back when we had the old public hearing, is that it is something they should be thinking about, because if they want legislatively to have, because so the problem, and this is kind of a state housing law thing, but the thing with passing these amendments to specific plans is that on the one hand, we're saying, well, okay, the staff recommendation is saying we're allocating 70 residential units for this site, and that's the staff recommendation. Obviously, council ultimately would have the discretion to move that number up, I think the highest they could take it would be 103, because that was what was studied, or they could take it down to, well, I guess 51 would be, I don't think they can take it down below what it currently is, so 51 would, I guess, be the floor. But, they can move that number up or down. But the problem is, well, the thing is, due to state law, that number is not the actual number of residences that can be built. So like, we're all looking, so, at least I am looking at the table that's like, hey, if we add residential allocation, but it's this number, but if they max the state density bonus law, then it would actually be this number. And if they don't max the state density bonus law, but they do some density, it would be this bonuses, it would be this number. And it all gets a little, the numbers end up being more of a range than an actual hard number. But ultimately, the decision of how much density bonus they would go after is up to the developer, and it is something I asked them to think about before coming back and saying, like, do we think this number is enough? Because ultimately, whether the number that's been allocated is enough is a function of how much density bonus that they are intending to seek. But
So theoretically, when would they have the plans and let us know exactly what the affordable housing percent is?
it would happen when it would happen after the specific plan amendment was resolved.
Okay,
But
okay,
because right now they can't, right now it's just ignoring any questions about how the builder's remedy might apply, because technically that is an effect. But if we hand wave that, because I don't want to think about that because that's just a total wild card that makes things even more confusing. But
Mhm.
under regular order, the projects would not be legal absence the specific plan amendment. So it would be at some point after that was filed. You'd have to ask the developer for exactly when they plan on submitting stuff.
Okay, so they haven't, in other words, the first thing they're doing is amending the plan. And then the next thing they'll do is submit plans for the build. And
Yes.
that'll detail
Mhm.
everything.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay, I'm clear. Thank you very
And
much.
obviously there could be outreach steps and whatever before then. That is their timeline. That is not ultimate.
And the commercial is commercial as opposed to retail, or is commercial include retail?
Which blocks are you talking about?
Well, it just says general plan initiation. It has increased commercial from the 16.4 to 36.5. And I'm just wondering, again, they'll detail that when they have the actual build for the building of what kind of commercial that is, whether it's retail or business or office.
Okay, so there's the part at the south end of it, the 584 and the 598 blocks that are just remaining office. So that isn't
Okay.
So that is going to stay office, but the commercial space, the commercial space in the development, I believe, let me just double check that. Yeah, that is. Yeah, it's in the paper I have, it just says it's just listed as commercial, so.
Okay, so we'll figure that out later too.
Yeah,
That's
it's
fine.
It's just listed as commercial square footage.
Cool.
Yeah, Gail, it's like the Moffett Park plan, right? Where the specific plan has to be approved and then they can come in with projects to within
Yeah,
that.
I'm clear. That wasn't clear in the presentation, so I'm fine with that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm good. So
I
we get
think
to go
it-
again.
I think it's worth noting, just look at this on the map. It's right across from the new city hall. And also across Olive is the joinery, which Livable Sunnyvale endorsed a multi-story office building. So if you just
Yeah,
stand,
but it would be nice to have it'd be nice to have a restaurant or two in there.
Okay.
So the people that, blah, blah, blah.
Okay,
That's
so I
okay.
actually have
I'll
a
stop.
better.
Thank
I have
you.
Gail, I actually have a better answer to that question.
Okay,
I found it. So this is, and I want to be clear that this is not legislatively, this would not be this is not the part that's legislatively mandated, but in the conceptual projects, they're suggesting that the that for the 510, 528 site, which is would be basically ground floor office with and I'm just quoting the staff report here, a possible cafe at the corner of South Matilda and West Olive. And the 562, 568 South Matilda project would basically keep the existing imaging center and just expand it a bit on the ground floor.
perfect. Thank you.
So that again, those are conceptual projects. That is not the legislative mandate. I think having a cafe at the corner of Matilda and Olive would be kind of cool, but
Very nice.
but I don't think there is a way to actually require that without an exceptional amount of spot zoning.
Thank you. I'm out.
Yeah, that's actually, that would be an amusing spot zone. Permitted uses, cafes, unpermitted uses, everything else. Anyway, I do not see any other hands, so I will stop sharing.
Well, so thank you, Martin,
Yep.
for spending your evening with us and helping to clarify what's going on Block 20.
Yes, so I've endeavored to not speak for either the developer or the residents who are opposed to the project. If you want their views, except for like brief notes of stuff I've heard, if you would like to get their perspectives on the project, and there were a lot of residents that were quite unhappy with the proposed amendments that did show up to the previous city council meeting. Then you should tune in on February 6th.
All righty, so thank you.
Yep.
I'm not seeing anything else on our agenda. Does anybody have any closing announcements or questions, or? I guess not. So have a good night. Thank you all for coming. Bye.